Program, or LWRP, Brownfield Opportunity Area Program, or BOA, and our Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Program. A few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. All attendees are muted, but you can ask questions in the Q&A section. To do that, go to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and look for the question mark. Click on that and you'll see a section for Q&A. If you click on that, you can enter your question. We'll be answering all questions at the end of the webinar. So at the beginning of your question, please indicate which grant program your question should be directed to: LWRP, BOA, or SGCP for Smart Growth Community Planning. Another note, we will not be able to answer questions, project-specific questions on eligibility. Eligibility is not always straightforward, and eligibility of an application will be based on information provided in the application itself. You may refer to guidelines presented today, as well as in the request for applications for the eligibility criteria. If you have additional questions that come to mind after the webinar, you can also submit questions to our formal Q&A, and written responses will be provided. We'll be providing more information on how to do this at the end of this webinar. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the DOS Funding and Bid Opportunities page on our website as soon as possible. Now, to begin our presentation, I will turn it over to Amy DeGaetano to talk about our local waterfront revitalization program.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Amy DeGaetano, and today I'll be talking about our local waterfront revitalization program, including eligibility requirements, grant categories, application evaluation criteria, and potential eligible projects. Again, for more in-depth information, it's recommended that all applicants read the entire request for application, or RFA, available at the Department of State's Funding and Bid Opportunities website, shown at the address here. In this grant round, DOS has approximately $13.975 million available through the LWRP program to fund community and waterfront revitalization projects, with up to $2 million of that total for updating existing local waterfront revitalization programs to be more resilient to climate risks. New York State's approach to managing waterfront areas recognizes that while state government can promote development and provide protection for critical natural resources, municipalities are in the best position to determine their own waterfront objectives and local needs. Accordingly, DOS provides waterfront communities financial and technical assistance to prepare, adopt, and implement LWRPs as part of the state's coastal management program. Eligible applicants. This grant program provides matching grants to villages, towns, and cities located along New York's coasts or designated inland waterways. Counties acting on behalf of one or more eligible municipalities are also eligible to apply for funding. Applications submitted by counties must attach a letter or resolution from each eligible municipality participating in the project, which demonstrates their consent and support for the application. Resources to help you determine if your municipality is located in the coastal area or along a designated inland waterway are available on the DOS Funding and Bidding Opportunities website at the link shown here. Grant categories. Funding is available for the following grant categories: preparing or updating a local waterfront revitalization program, including updating an LWRP to be more resilient to climate risks; preparing an LWRP component, including a watershed management plan; and implementing an LWRP or LWRP component. A grant application can only include one planning project, such as preparation of an LWRP or watershed management plan, or one implementation project. These may not be combined into a single application. One implementation project may include the design and construction of a variety of enhancements, such as living shorelines, green infrastructure, public docking, fishing access, trails, and other amenities, if they will all be constructed at the same site. Applications may include multiple implementation projects in multiple locations only if the projects are of similar type and scope and clearly address a common critical issue identified in an LWRP or watershed management plan funded by the Department of State. For example, replacement of multiple undersized culverts within a watershed would be allowable in a single application. Applicants may submit more than one grant application during each grant round. For general planning, such as preparation of an LWRP or watershed management plan, an applicant must be a village, town, city, or county with the consent and on behalf of one or more villages, towns, or cities located in New York State's coasts or designated inland waterways. To be eligible for funding for projects such as feasibility studies and design, the applicant must be currently preparing or have an approved LWRP or LWRP component. To be eligible for funding for construction projects, the applicant must have an approved or substantially complete LWRP or relevant LWRP component. Additionally, all proposed implementation projects must be located within the plan boundary. For projects which include design and construction, site control for all properties where improvements will be implemented must be established prior to the grant application due date. Now a little bit more about preparing or updating an LWRP. Preparation of an LWRP is the principal means of implementing the state's coastal management program and plays a significant role in addressing relevant issues for a given region or place, bringing to bear the resources and authorities of local governments and engaging the public in the management and use of resources, having ecological, physical, social, visual, and economic relationship to the waterfront. Communities with an approved LWRP are encouraged to regularly update their plans to ensure the plan is current and well connected to short and long range community objectives, including addressing current and future climate risks. An LWRP update can include a revision to all LWRP sections or focus on an emerging issue such as resiliency. Amend the LWRP boundary. It can reflect changes in land use or identify new project proposals. The LWRP planning process includes the formation of a waterfront advisory committee, extensive public engagement, and the creation of a comprehensive waterfront revitalization planning document and implementation framework. LWRPs are grounded in federal, state, and local legislation and coastal policies, creating the program by which the LWRP is implemented, and must be adopted by both the local municipality and approved by the New York State Secretary of State, and if located in the coastal area, NOAA's Office of Coastal Management. LWRPs can take several years to fully develop, which should be factored into your project timeline, budget included in your grant application. New York State Executive Law Article 42 describes the basic elements that each program must address, which are organized into 7 sections listed here. For more information, a recorded webinar and guidance manual for preparing LWRPs are available on the DOS Local Waterfront Revitalization website at the address shown here. Communities are increasingly vulnerable to more intense and frequent rain events, extreme heat, drought, and greater flooding and shoreline erosion caused by heavy rain, runoff, intense winds, and wave actions, which can be exacerbated by climate change. The health and resilience of communities rests on their ability to plan and prepare for future climate impacts, reduce or avoid harm from hazards, and rebound from those impacts when they occur. To help community address these issues, DOS encourages applications which update an existing LWRP to be more resilient to climate risks. Applicants are encouraged to consider the DOS resilience principles available on our website, which provide a straightforward way for communities to understand and apply different resilience concepts. While we encourage communities to complete full LWRPs, inclusive of considerations of all enforceable state coastal policies, and local waterfront geographic areas. For some communities, it may be more appropriate to advance towards a complete LWRP in stages to address the most time-sensitive and geographically significant priorities and policies. An LWRP component focuses on one or more topics or sections of an LWRP or its waterfront, provided that the program constitute a discrete yet cohesive and comprehensive treatment of the subject or subject addressed, which may be related to environmental, social, regional growth management, or economic conditions. An LWRP component may focus on one or more state coastal policies that are relevant to the particular conditions and priorities in the municipality, address a significant geographic portion of the municipality's waterfront, or both. Applicants may also seek funding to prepare a watershed management plan, including 9-element plans, to protect and restore specific water bodies in their watersheds, prioritize land uses and capital projects to reduce point and non-point source pollution, and protect and restore water quality, tributary corridors, and aquatic habitats. As watersheds generally encompass more than one municipal jurisdiction, the preparation of cooperative intermunicipal plans for a specific watershed can be an effective way to achieve local, regional, and statewide goals. DOS's watershed planning framework establishes long-term watershed management, describes existing water quality conditions, identifies priority actions to address impairments and threats. Watershed management planning guidebook and a recorded informational webinar are available on DOS's website at the address shown at the bottom of this slide. Implementing an LWRP or an LWRP component. Here's a few examples of the wide variety of implementation projects that can be accomplished with LWRP funding. To promote tourism in the Adirondacks, LWRP funds were used to design and publish a paddling destination brochure. The City of North Tonawanda installed a new kayak launch along the Erie Canal with wayfinding signage to promote its use. The City of Rochester converted an abandoned railroad bridge into a multi-use trail connecting segments of its Genesee River Trail. It also transformed a deteriorated parking lot along the Genesee River into a new public marina. New York City installed a Harlem River Park living shoreline to reintroduce in-water habitat and enhance water quality, while also absorbing wave energy and storm surge. To highlight attractions and contribute to the vibrant downtown streetscape, the City of Jamestown created a series of custom street pole banners which promoted local assets. These are just a few examples of successful revitalization projects constructed with LWRP funding. Our 2024 program priorities focus on preparing resilient communities to help build more resilient waterfront communities and improve community readiness to apply for construction funding through the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act and other funding sources. In this solicitation, the department is prioritizing applications to prepare planning or feasibility studies and or design for projects that preserve, restore, and or enhance natural landscapes that protect water quality and catalyze waterfront revitalization, and projects that lead to the preservation or restoration of natural landscapes. A few examples are natural and nature-based shoreline stabilization, living shorelines. These provide an alternative to hard shoreline such as bulkheads by instead utilizing plants and other natural materials to stabilize shorelines while also improving habitat and resilience. Vegetative buffers, culvert right-sizing, natural sediment transport restoration. For example, this could be a stream restoration project that recreates the proper stream channel design, dimension, pattern, and profile of the stream channel that moves water and sediment without causing aggradation or degradation. Runoff reduction and or reduction of watershed imperviousness and preservation of groundwater infiltration. stormwater projects that address water quality and green infrastructure such as rain gardens, bioretention areas, stormwater, green streets, porous pavements, and projects to make public facilities, including parks, trails, blueways, more resilient to potential severe weather and flooding impacts, including water quality improvements. And lastly, to mitigate barriers to Diandronomus fish species migration. Eligible and ineligible costs are shown on this slide. Please look at our RFA for more details. Grant funds may be used to cover the personal services, non-personal services, and grant administration activities listed here and explained further in the RFA. Ineligible costs include federal funding, including ARPA, other state environmental protection awards, and costs that do not directly support the project, among the others that are listed here. Local match requirements. State assistance shall not be paid to exceed 75% of the total eligible project costs, except where the proposed project is located in an environmental justice community or a disadvantaged community, in which case the state assistance award shall not exceed 85% of the total eligible project costs. If an applicant is seeking state assistance equal to 85% of the total project cost, this should be clearly indicated in the project funding and program budget section in the CFA and in the LWRP budget summary and detail CFA attachment. For the purposes of determining local match rates, refer to the RFA and the potential environmental justice area and disadvantaged community maps, where links are available to these maps on the DOS Funding and Bid Opportunities website. Applicants must identify the amount, type, source, and eligible local match in the grant application and demonstrate that it has been secured. Failure to do so will result in a reduced award amount for qualifying applications. Determining your state funding request. As shown in this example, to calculate the state funding request, take your total eligible cost and multiply by the appropriate percentage of state assistance. For most projects, this will be 75%. However, as I mentioned previously, for projects located in areas that meet the environmental justice and disadvantaged community criteria described in the RFA, this would be 85%. Then to calculate the local match, just take the total project cost and subtract the state funds requested. For this solicitation, the minimum state assistance request for EPF LWRP grant funding per application is $50,000, and the maximum state assistance request is $2 million. Applications requesting under $50,000 in grant funding will be disqualified and will not be scored. When filling out your grant application, be sure to answer all the questions completely and clearly. These questions correspond to the evaluation criteria your application will be reviewed against. The evaluation criteria is summarized here, but also described in more detail in the RFA. Out of 100 possible points, the Department of State is responsible for awarding up to 80 points, and the Regional Economic Development Councils are responsible for awarding up to 20 points, depending on the degree to which the proposed project advances the REDC strategic plan. In the CFA, applicants should click the question requirement link next to each question for tips on what should be covered in your response. This will likely help you write a stronger grant application. And that's the end of the presentation regarding the local waterfront revitalization program, and I will now turn it over to the Brownfield Opportunity Areas program.
Thank you, Amy. I'm Leslie Zlatev. As Amy mentioned, I'm going to describe the Brownfield Opportunity Areas program and give you an overview for the 2024 program, including a summary of eligibility requirements, description of eligible activities, and an overview of the application evaluation criteria. For more comprehensive program information, all applicants should review the posted 2024 Brownfield Opportunity Area Program request for application. Approximately $2 million in funding is available from DOS for the Brownfield Opportunity Areas activities in the 2024-2025 funding year. The full request for applications is found on the Department of State's website, identified here. The Brownfield Opportunity Area Program. Brownfields are areas or neighborhoods that are affected by known or suspected brownfield sites. Brownfield sites are real properties where a contaminant is present at levels exceeding the soil cleanup objectives or where levels exceed other health-based or environmental standards criteria, or the guidance adopted by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Known or suspected site contamination of real property can impede investment and redevelopment, making such property an economic and environmental drain on localities. The BOA program applies a smart growth approach to brownfield assessment and redevelopment using neighborhood-wide planning and conservation strategies rather than traditional site-by-site assessment and redevelopment of known or suspected brownfields and other vacant or abandoned properties. The BOA program applies, the neighborhood approach enables communities to comprehensively assess existing economic and environmental conditions associated with brownfield-related blight and impacted areas, identify and prioritize community-supported redevelopment opportunities, and attract public and private investment. BOA focuses resources to identify and encourage redevelopment of strategic sites within the BOA. The types of areas where program resources are being applied include industrial and manufacturing zones, commercial corridors, mixed-use neighborhoods, downtowns, and waterfronts. The primary objective of the New York State Brownfield Opportunity Area Program is to transform these known and suspected brownfields from liabilities to community assets, which generate business, jobs, and revenues for local economies and provide new housing and public amenities within the community. The BOA program empowers communities. It does this by the listed factors there. It provides a planning framework, funding, and technical assistance to address brownfields and brownfield impacted areas, enabling communities to envision and plan for future growth. Through the development of a BOA plan, communities evaluate existing conditions, build consensus on desired future uses, and establish goals for area-wide revitalization and redevelopment of strategic sites, while promoting environmental equity and community partnerships. Following designation of a Brownfield Opportunity Area by the Secretary of State, eligible applicants may request funding for additional pre-development and Phase 2 environmental site assessments to advance community-supported implementation projects identified in the plan. The BOA program is a multi-step process for revitalization. One step subsequently builds on the next step, each step builds on each other to get to implementation and future revitalization of this area. For applicants looking for preliminary brownfield identification and analysis of a county or larger geographical area, the pre-planning activity is the first step in the BOA program. Pre-planning allows places with minimal brownfield-related data to comprehensively inventory and complete a preliminary analysis to determine the presence of potential brownfield, vacant, and abandoned sites, and identify local concentrations of known or suspected brownfield areas within an expansive geographical area, such as the county. The pre-planning activity is most appropriate for those expansive areas or counties that have not identified potential areas appropriate for brownfield opportunity area plan already. Through inventory and analysis, identified concentrations of brownfields and underutilized properties will reveal opportunities for future BOA planning efforts that could be undertaken. Pre-planning will enable counties and cooperating local municipalities to conceive a collaborative approach to identify appropriate areas and actionable steps that can be taken to advance future BOA planning efforts. For local municipalities, nonprofits, and New York City community boards, the appropriate first step may be in the BOA program is the development of a new BOA plan or an update of an outdated BOA plan. A BOA plan is a realistic, community-based vision and strategy for an area affected by a concentration of known or suspected brownfields. Upon completion, the plan is submitted to the Secretary of State with a request that the area be designated as a brownfield opportunity area. The third step, upon designation, BOAs receive certain advantages and additional resources to support revitalization of the area consistent with the BOA plan, including eligibility for BOA pre-development activities and environmental site assessment grants, increased tax credits for private sector redevelopment of brownfield sites through the Brownfield Cleanup Program, or BCP, and priority and preference for other New York State grants. State funding is often a catalyst in the redevelopment process. This brings us to the eligible applicants. Eligible applicants for the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program include municipalities and related entities as listed here. Certain non-for-profit community-based organizations with the following criteria identified here, and New York City community boards within New York City. Eligible community-based organizations must be not-for-profits, 501c3 status, and have a stated mission to promote reuse of known or suspected brownfields or undertaken community revitalization within a geographical area in which the community board organization is located. Additionally, at least 25% of the community-based organization board of directors must reside within the BOA community. The BOA must represent an area with demonstrated financial need. Applications submitted by a community-based organization for funding to develop a BOA plan must include a resolution of support from the local municipality with land use authority. In New York City, a resolution of support must be received from the community board in which the BOA is located. Additionally, all community-based organizations shall submit the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program Community-Based Organization Affirmation with their application, stating that the organization did not contribute to contamination within the BOA area as applicable with relevant statutes and is further outlined in the request for application this year. Applicants are encouraged to work in partnership and may apply jointly for funding. Joint applications should identify the municipality, community-based organization, or community board that the department should recognize as the primary applicant for all purposes, including contracting of the ward. BOA eligible grant activities. There are 4 BOA eligible grant activities. BOA funding is available for up to 90% of the total eligible project cost for 4 types of activities listed on this slide. These include completing a pre-planning inventory, assessment, and preliminary analysis of known or suspected brownfields, including vacant, abandoned, and underutilized properties within a county, borough, or other multi-jurisdictional area to identify concentrations of these properties for future BOA or specific area planning efforts. The planning activity is to develop a Brownfield Opportunity Area Plan or update an existing designated or non-designated BOA plan, creating a strategy for future revitalization. Pre-development activities include and advance the community's goal and priorities for revitalization and redevelopment projects as expressed in the BOA plan for the state designated BOA. And lastly, the Phase 2 environmental site assessment is to gather reliable information about a property's environmental condition to guide the grantee in making an informed land use decision for specific sites within the state designated BOA. Eligible applicants as identified on the previous slide and elaborated on in the full BOA request for applications may apply for any of the 4 grant activities. The maximum for each grant award under this solicitation is $500,000, with a minimum grant award of $100,000. The amount requested must be thoroughly justified and supported. An application for funding should only include one type of activity. Applicants may apply for more than one grant. Eligible applicants wishing to apply for more than one grant or multiple types of activities should submit separate applications for each activity type. Detailed budget and supplemental materials must be included with each application as directed. To further elaborate on the following programs: countywide pre-planning and brownfield identification and preliminary analysis. The pre-planning activity funds the identification, inventory, and preliminary analysis of potential brownfields, vacant and abandoned and underutilized sites within either a county, borough, or other multi-jurisdictional area. The areas of localized concentration may be candidates for future in-depth BOA planning and pre-development activities. All eligible applicants listed in Section 2 of the BOA request for application are eligible for the pre-planning activity. The boundaries of study for pre-planning activity is not exclusive to a county or municipal boundary. Pre-planning funds may be used for inventory and preliminary analysis for single or multi-jurisdictional areas where boundaries are clearly defined in the application and a resolution of support is submitted by each grant application for joint applications. The pre-planning activity does not culminate in a BOA designation, and future BOA planning would be needed for that effort. The analysis shall culminate in a description and justification of an area or areas within a county for future BOA planning and a basic description of current land use and zoning, the proximity of potential brownfield sites to infrastructure assets, and an assessment of existing and ongoing planning efforts. There's also a description of existing brownfield sites and other underutilized properties, and a description of the area's potential for revitalization, including the potential for renewable energy siting, and as applicable, a set of action steps that can be taken to advance future BOA planning efforts. The countywide pre-planning activity will enable counties or a larger jurisdictional area to better understand the development conditions surrounding potential brownfield clusters and integrate existing and ongoing planning efforts into the BOA program. Pre-planning will not culminate in a BOA designation, as I mentioned before, but will give an area far more information about what in the future can be done. Countywide pre-planning is intended for large areas that have minimal information on the number and extent of potential brownfield sites and related underutilized sites that may have a significant adverse impact on the community. Pre-planning will enable these large jurisdictional areas or counties to cooperate with local municipalities to conceive a holistic approach for long-term economic development and revitalization. Excuse me. Excuse me. The second activity is planning, the development or update of a BOA plan. Eligible entities may apply for funding to complete a BOA plan or update an existing BOA, a designated or non-designated BOA plan, to include all elements necessary to support a request for designation of the BOA by the Secretary of State. A BOA plan is an area-specific plan that expresses a long-term vision for the community's revitalization and strategies for the redevelopment of an area affected by a concentration of known or suspected brownfields. Achieving revitalization goals requires broad community support, strong partnerships, and sufficient local and regional capacity to overcome obstacles. Therefore, the preparation of a BOA plan is expected to include robust community and stakeholder engagement, as well as specific actions to develop partnerships and build the local capacity necessary to realize implementation of the plan. A BOA plan update may be applicable and relevant in your community if your BOA is outdated or in need of revision. All BOA plans completed under this program shall be submitted to the Secretary of State in support of an application for designation of the area as a Brownfield Opportunity Area. BOA designation opens eligibility for other state programs and avenues for further redevelopment funding. Additional guidance describing the requirements of BOA designation can be found on the link on this slide. The third category is pre-development activities. Pre-development activities are eligible within state designated BOAs to advance the goals and priorities for revitalization and redevelopment as expressed in the BOA plan. Applicants with a pending application for designation submitted to the Department of State prior to June 1st of 2024 are also eligible to apply this year. However, funding may only be awarded if the designation is made by the Secretary of State by October 1st. Activities eligible for pre-development grants are identified on the shown slide, including analysis, plans, and studies that are undertaken, leading to the fulfillment of catalytic development or area improvement within a state-designated BOA, as well as professional services to advance redevelopment, which are consistent with the BOA plan. The proposed pre-development activities should promote environmental equity in the scope of work and subsequent proposal for project development. The department highly encourages applications for pre-development activities which include and prioritize inclusion and accessibility in their design. Project design should incorporate Americans with Disabilities Act standards and other creative solutions which go beyond minimum ADA to maximize accessibility, to make public spaces and facilities more inclusive and usable for as many people as possible, regardless of the differences in ability, and will allow all visitors equal access. It is important to note that pre-development grants cannot be used for capital expenses under this solicitation. A list of state-designated BOAs is available on the department website at the address shown. The last activity eligible are Phase 2 environmental site assessments. Eligible applicants may apply for Phase 2 environmental site assessments to gather reliable information about a property's environmental condition to guide the grantee in making an informed land use decision under the BOA program. The ASTM standard for Phase 2 environmental site assessments does not include the level of technical specificity required to select and design a remedy for the property, but it does provide flexibility in determining the necessary level of assessment needed and is appropriate for land use planning of the redevelopment process. Applicants must demonstrate in their application that additional environmental information about a site or sites thought to have potential contaminants present is necessary to determine technically and economically viable land uses for the BOA. The completion of an environmental site assessment should advance the goals and priorities for revitalization and redevelopment of the BOA area. Phase 2 environmental site assessments must meet all criteria contained in the Phase 2 application for site assessment supplement and the requirements as detailed in the BOA RFA. Project sites must be located within a state-designated BOA. A list of state-designated BOAs is located on the department website. Applicants with a pending application for designation submitted to DOS prior to June 1st are also eligible to apply. However, funding may only be awarded if the designation is made by the Secretary of State by October 1st, 2024. All Phase 2 environmental site assessments must include a Phase 2 environmental site assessment supplement. A supplement must be provided for each Phase 2 site. The supplemental application must be submitted at time of application and must be filled out in its entirety to be eligible for funding consideration. Phase 2 environmental site assessment applications will be evaluated on a pass-fail basis for eligibility. The applications that pass for eligibility are then evaluated per the scoring criteria outlined in the application evaluation criteria in the BOA RFA. Site eligibility for an environmental site assessment funded through the BOA program does not guarantee site eligibility in the New York State Brownfield Cleanup Program administered by the Department of Environmental Conservation. Further Department of State guidance on Phase 2 environmental site assessments is found in the BOA Site Assessment Supplement Package. For this year, the award limitations are as such. The maximum award under this solicitation is $500,000 per application. The minimum award under the solicitation is $100,000 per application. State assistance awarded and paid to the grant recipient shall not exceed 90% of the total eligible project cost. The applicant receiving a grant must demonstrate the ability to cover the remaining 10% of the project costs, and those costs must be eligible and essential to project completion. Grant funds may be used to cover the personal services, non-personal services, and grant administration activities listed here and explained in greater depth in the RFA. Ineligible costs include indirect and overhead costs, salaries of elected officials, costs incurred prior to the contract start date, costs not adequately justified or that do not directly support the project, and other Environmental Protection Fund awards, including but not limited to WQIP, LWRP, Smart Growth, and OPRHP, EPF grants. The BOA evaluation criteria. Applications meeting the eligibility criteria will be reviewed and scored according to the program criteria presented. All eligible applicants will be evaluated to assess the degree to which they meet the application evaluation criteria published in the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program RFA. In filling out your consolidated funding application, please be sure to fully answer all questions clearly and with sufficient detail. The BOA CFA questions correspond to the program evaluation criteria as found in the request for applications, Section 9, Application Evaluation Criteria, and summarized on this slide. For each CFA question, applicants should click on the question help link at the bottom of the question for further directions of what should be addressed in the detailed response. The question help tool will assist applicants in addressing the question content in full to maximize the points awarded for each question. Out of a possible 100 points, the Department of State Office of Planning and Development is responsible for awarding 80 points. The Regional Economic Development Council for the relevant region of which the project is located within is responsible for awarding the remaining 20 points, depending on the degree to which the proposed project advances the REDC strategic plan. That concludes the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program. I will hand it over to my colleague for Smart Growth.
Thank you, Leslie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Danny Lappin. I am a revitalization specialist with the New York State Department of State's Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure. I'm here today to discuss the Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Program. The Department of State is pleased to be able to dedicate approximately $2 million in Environmental Protection Fund Smart Growth resources to develop and update comprehensive plans, area plans, such as transit-oriented development districts, and zoning ordinances for such plans that incorporate the principles of smart growth. This presentation will provide an overview of the program, eligibility requirements, description of the grant categories and potential eligible activities, and information on the application evaluation criteria. For more detailed information, please refer to the full request for applications, or RFA, at the Department of State's Funding and Bid Opportunities webpage. The Smart Growth Program also administers the State Environmental Protection Fund's Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Grant Program, which provides grants to municipalities, regional planning entities, and not-for-profits to develop and implement plans on a variety of topics that implement the principles of smart growth. What is smart growth? Smart growth is an approach to community planning that integrates what are known as the 3 E's, with an emerging 4th E of energy. This approach to community planning is supported by the smart growth principles shown on this slide. Collectively, these principles encourage communities to creatively address their specific planning challenges and opportunities by establishing standards for community development, which effectively balances economic development with the protection of natural resources. Smart growth community planning relies on robust, inclusive, and equitable public engagement activities. Collaborative planning processes can lead to creative solutions to development challenges while generating greater levels of community buy-in for local initiatives. Public input plays an essential role in the application of smart growth principles to a community's specific needs. We recognize that each community in New York State is different. There is no formula that will uniformly guarantee that a community will develop a smart growth plan. However, we trust that our communities will work creatively to apply the smart growth principles to make their town, village, city, or county a great place to live, work, and play. Eligible applicants. Please note that applications submitted by a county, regional planning entity, or not-for-profit acting on behalf of another municipality are required to submit a letter or resolution from the municipality participating in the project which demonstrates their consent and support for the application. Also, please note that to be eligible for this grant opportunity, a not-for-profit organization must be incorporated pursuant to New York State not-for-profit corporation law and be approved for tax-exempt status under the Internal Revenue Service on or before December 31st of 2023. Eligible project types. Eligible project types include a new or updated comprehensive plan for an entire town, village, or city, a new or updated comprehensive plan for an entire county, a new or updated zoning code for a town, village, or city, a zoning amendment which implements an adopted area plan or comprehensive plan, and a new or updated area plan for part of a town, village, or city, such as a transit-oriented development plan or a downtown or hamlet area plan. Okay, so overview of planning activities. The comprehensive plan is essentially a high-level guiding document that sets a vision for a community. Area plans support the comprehensive plan by providing direction for the development in specific areas. Together, they inform the development of zoning ordinances, but themselves do not establish zoning. Zoning ordinances are one of the primary land use planning tools used by local governments to implement an adopted comprehensive plan or area plan. They are developed through a robust public engagement process with the goal of determining how land is used and where development might occur. There are many different types of zoning, such as Euclidean zoning, which divides development by use, and form-based zoning, which focuses more on how buildings look and function. It is important to note that all zoning ordinances must be consistent with an adopted comprehensive plan. Planning processes are typically initiated by local governments. However, they are driven by the community acting in partnerships with partners such as local businesses, faith organizations, school districts, and other state and federal agencies, just to name a few. Please note that zoning codes and area plans must be consistent with an adopted comprehensive plan. The following slides will dive deeper into the planning areas we just discussed. Comprehensive planning. The comprehensive planning process often begins with a reflection and analysis of past and current conditions in a community with the goal of understanding how the community arrived at its current state. It then moves into a robust and equitable public engagement process, which helps a given community find consensus on the desired state of their town, village, city, or county 10 to 20 years into the future. This is more commonly known as developing a vision. Next, the comprehensive plan process moves into the core phase, which involves an in-depth analysis of how a given community will achieve its desired vision while incorporating smart growth principles. It is important to understand that there is no one perfect approach to achieving this. Rather, communities will address this component in a manner that best fits their own unique circumstances. The final step of the comprehensive planning process involves the community taking all the data it gathered and developing a clear, actionable plan to implement the comprehensive plan within its 10 to 20 year planning horizon. Benefits of comprehensive plans. Comprehensive plans have numerous benefits, including but not limited to motivating communities to proactively address planning challenges and opportunities alike, rather than reacting to them as they arise. Implementing a shared vision for the future of a given community and providing a sense of stability throughout political administrations. Next, comprehensive plans are a powerful tool in attracting grants, not-for-profit funding, and developers who are interested in investing in a community with a clear vision for the future. By preparing a comprehensive plan that addresses smart growth principles, community stakeholders have the opportunity to pursue a pattern of growth that is financially sustainable, economically resilient, and that is conscious of the environment. Area planning. Similar to comprehensive plans, area plans analyze the conditions of a particular corridor or neighborhood, like a downtown, and with the help of the public, develops a shared vision for the area's future growth. Area plans create a framework for growth and investment, with zoning ordinances acting as an important tool in achieving the area's desired development pattern. Zoning ordinances. So zoning ordinances provide multiple functions for a given community. First, they regulate land use. Zoning ordinances designate specific areas for residential neighborhoods, commercial districts, and industrial zones, preventing incompatible uses from being built next to each other. Next, they promote predictable development patterns. Zoning provides clear guidelines for developers, ensuring new construction aligns with the surrounding built and natural environment. They also protect public health and safety. Zoning ordinances address factors like building heights, setbacks, and parking requirements. This promotes safe neighborhoods in a healthier built environment. And finally, they create a foundation for growth. By encouraging a smart growth approach to development, zoning ordinances allow communities to attract businesses and residents while still maintaining its unique character and protecting sensitive natural resources. Please note that a community cannot apply for both a comprehensive plan grant and a zoning grant to implement the comp plan. But a community can apply for an area plan grant and a zoning grant for that given area. Eligible activities. Over the course of the planning process, the following activities are eligible for reimbursement: writing, illustrating, and producing the comprehensive plan, holding and facilitating community forums and other costs related to public outreach and engagement, coordinating with other governmental entities, State Environmental Quality Review Act reviews and other related environmental reviews, and project management, comprehensive plan committee coordination, and other activities needed to complete a comprehensive plan that addresses smart growth principles. With respect to zoning, eligible activities could include activities such as reviewing the existing zoning ordinance, incorporating proposed amendments into the existing zoning regulations, conducting site visits and other public engagement activities, and the preparation of diagnostic reports on existing zoning ordinances. Award limitations. This year, there will be a minimum state assistance request of $75,000. There will be no maximum award value. This will ensure the creation of more realistic budgets to ensure planning is achievable and successful. However, applicants will be required to submit a very clear and justified budget with their application. Awards may cover up to 90% of the total eligible cost of the project, with the applicant providing a local share of 10%. Grant funds may be used to cover the personal services, non-personal services, project management, and grant administration activities listed here and explained further in the full request for applications. Ineligible costs include indirect or overhead costs, salaries of elected officials, costs incurred outside of the contract term, or costs not adequately justified or that do not directly support the project. In completing your consolidated funding application, please be sure to fully utilize the question help and question requirements tools to ensure that you have all the information you need to answer all questions in a clear, concise, and complete manner. Next, I will hand it back over to Dave Ashton to wrap us up.
Great, thanks. Thanks to Amy, Leslie, and Denny for the overview of the programs. So that ends our formal presentation, and we can now look at the questions that have come in through the Q&A and answer those. And just as a reminder, if you have additional questions, please enter them into that Q&A in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and note which program you are directing the question to. Okay, we have one question about BOA. Please discuss what having a BOA grant looks like. How much flexibility is there with work plans? What documentation is required and how frequently? Awarded projects will work with the department to develop a work plan for their project based on the application. The project may be tailored to the particular circumstances of the community or the specific BOA area, but would still need to meet the requirements of the program. A DOS project manager will work with each grantee on project implementation, their deliverables at regular work plan milestones, as well as twice yearly reporting on the status of the overall project and contract. And of course, upon completion, we look for submission of final deliverables. There's some minor final reporting at the end, and that's where you would request a final payment request to receive reimbursement under the grant. We have another question. What is the best tool to locate brownfield locations? The state does not maintain a list of known or suspected brownfields due to the sort of broad and varying use of the term. But from some sources to consider would be the Department of Environmental Conservation has a database of properties that are enrolled in their brownfield remedial programs. That's available on their website. There are also private services that can review an area, sort of do an area-wide scan for properties with known or suspected contamination. So that's another source that we often see. Additionally, I think importantly, an in-person inventory can be very beneficial and can uncover known or suspected brownfields as well as underutilized and abandoned sites, which would be relevant for a BOA site inventory. So we're not only looking for brownfields, known or suspected brownfields, but also vacant and abandoned, underutilized sites as well. And also on the sort of pre-planning activity, if you're a county or sort of a larger municipality, you might be interested in pursuing sort of the pre-planning grant to collect further information and inventory those brownfield areas. Even though the pre-planning activity won't provide definitive data on the location of sort of confirmed brownfield sites, it will provide a solid inventory of sites that are known or suspected, underutilized, vacant, abandoned, et cetera, that can then be analyzed for concentrations that would be appropriate for further BOA planning in the future. Let's see. What else do we have? Will slides be available for download? Yes, the slides and the recorded webinar will be posted to each of the grant web pages, which you can access from the DOS funding and bid opportunities page on our website. And we'll get this up as soon as we can. Is it possible for a community to apply for a BOA and LWRP is underway that has identified known or suspected sites within the analysis portion of the LWRP. Is having an LWRP underway a negative for DOS in reviewing the BOA application? No, the programs work together frequently. So if you are working on an LWRP and it's become evident that a BOA project would be beneficial for the revitalization of the area, you can certainly apply for a BOA, and sort of noting that planning effort that's underway would add to strength of the application itself. So we certainly encourage that. We think our programs work together, really all of them, and one can often lead sequentially to another. So that would be perfectly appropriate and would be viewed upon favorably.
So there's one smart growth question that was entered, and it reads as follows: through the Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Program, can you apply for a comp plan for an entire county that includes smart growth principles as well as smaller plans within it, such as a local waterfront revitalization plans for villages and hamlets throughout the county, a countywide resiliency plan, as well as a standard comprehensive plan, items like housing, goals and objectives, transportation, et cetera? Or are there limits to what a comprehensive plan can include? So a county can apply for a comprehensive plan grant, which includes elements related to hamlet redevelopment, resiliency, and natural resource protection. It can also include things like housing studies or transportation studies as like, chapters within the plan itself. Villages within the same county can also apply for a comprehensive plan grant. And finally, communities can apply simultaneously for a comprehensive plan grant and a local waterfront revitalization program grant at the same time in separate applications. The next question is under the comprehensive plan grant slide, there was a question related to the criteria. Is that information and the whole RFA online? Yes, it is on the Department of State's Funding and Bid Opportunities webpage. The next question related to smart growth reads as follows. It says, in the final section, the presenter noted that a community cannot apply for a smart growth community planning and zoning grant for both a comprehensive plan and a zoning code update. Is that just within the same year? For example, if the municipality was previously awarded a smart growth award for a comprehensive plan grant, can they apply for this for a zoning grant for a zoning amendment in the subsequent year? So the answer to the first question is yes, that's within the same year. And to the second question, it really depends on the status of the comprehensive plan. If the community feels like they will complete the comprehensive plan grant in a relatively short amount of time prior to the contracting period related to the zoning amendment grant, they can do so. Kind of more specifically, as long as the comprehensive plan grant is a comprehensive planning process is solidified and has advanced to a point where you can anticipate future land use, then yes, you should apply for a zoning code amendment in the following year. The next question is, if a community is applying for smart growth community planning and zoning award, does the governing body, such as the city council, need to pass a resolution of the grant application or not? Generally, communities should pass a resolution that indicates a permission to apply for the grant program, and it is also recommended that communities obtain letters of support from community partner organizations or other community groups that demonstrate support for the project.
There's another question. Can a county apply for both the pre-planning BOA and a countywide comprehensive plan? Yes, you can apply for both of those. Separate applications, of course, but yes. Scanning. Are there specific requirements for letters of support, and to whom should they be addressed? There are not specific requirements for letters of support, and they can be addressed to the Secretary of State, or they can be just general letters of support that are uploaded with the application itself.
I believe there's instructions on how to submit those on the first page of each request for application.
There's a question here on smart growth. Presently, we have a smart growth grant which has inadequate funding to acquire a consultant. Can we submit for another smart growth grant to acquire consulting planning firms, or is it better to cancel our existing grant and file for another smart growth grant with more funding? That one might be a little sort of community specific. So my suggestion on that is you might get in touch with your project manager that you're working with on the existing grant and sort of talk about the specific details, and they can provide some advice on that question.
Another BOA one, Dave. Can municipal BOA pre-development activities be included in a single application? Together, the projects total over $100,000, but separately they do not.
So what we ask for BOA is that the different types of activities are in different applications. So if you have several pre-development activities, you could put those in a single application. But if you were looking for site assessment funding, that would have to be in a different application. Or if you were looking for county-wide, that would be in a different application. But if you're looking for just pre-development activities, say you were looking to do a marketing study and a conceptual design for a park improvement, that could be combined in a single application for pre-development funding. And the scope of work, and you would want to detail the scope of work for each activity that you're applying for. So it's clear both the scope of work and the budget for each activity within the application. Scanning the questions some more. Go ahead.
So there's a question as to whether a school district can apply for a smart growth community planning and zoning grant. The answer is school districts are not eligible to apply for a smart growth community planning and zoning grant. However, it is recommended that school districts partner with municipalities to engage in a comprehensive planning process, with the municipality being, or a nonprofit or regional planning entity being the lead applicant.
I'm going to read a question here that's a little bit detailed, and Danny, maybe you can answer. Related to comp planning, if a planning agency is already planning a downtown revitalization and we are hired to do a comprehensive plan after the planning of downtown is already underway, does that put either the comp plan or the planning plan in jeopardy of their grants or future grants if the planning is not in alignment with the results of the comp plan? Just trying to digest that for a moment.
So I guess if I understand it correctly, the question is if there was a downtown development plan that was completed prior to the adoption of, or I guess prior to the receipt of a comprehensive plan grant, and the comprehensive plan grant, comprehensive planning process that moved in a direction that is not consistent with the downtown development plan, does that put either planning process in jeopardy? The comprehensive plan grant, the answer should identify how, prior adopted plans or other, kind of land use documents inform, the implementation of smart growth principles. How the community chooses to align the two plans is really up to them. The most important element with respect to the smart growth community planning and zoning process is that the comprehensive plan grant application clearly identifies how, the community will approach the integration of smart growth planning principles into their overall planning process, and how that will align with prior adopted plans or not in this case. So the short answer is it is up to the community on how they align the two plans, but the answer is no. If the community chooses to move in a different direction, that will not jeopardize either funding stream.
I think I see one for LWRP. The question is, the RFA for the local waterfront revitalization program says that indirect or overhead costs of the municipality are ineligible. Could you clarify whether or not institutions of higher education who are sub-awardees can include indirect costs in their budgets? No, that would not be considered an eligible expense under the LWRP program.
We have a question. What is the recommended way to highlight one's application to the REDC? I don't think it's really our place to say how one would do that. The REDC program is administered by Empire State Development. There are regional offices within each region, but I think I'll leave that answer there. And just scanning for any additional questions.
I think there was a follow-up to one of the previous BOA questions. So just to confirm my earlier question, we should not put those plans within the comprehensive plan in our application. So that might be a smart growth question.
Can you
not sure.
Can you repeat it?
Yes.
I'm trying to find it.
It kind of became unconnected to the previous question. But it was, so just to confirm my earlier question, we should not do those plans within the comprehensive plan in our application.
But what was the original question? Okay, so
I think I know. Remember, it was a question related to having a LWRP as an element of a county-wide comprehensive plan. I guess I can answer the smart growth component. In terms of a comprehensive plan kind of time frame, in the request for applications, you will be asked to identify a scope of work and time frame for the completion of your comprehensive plan. If an ongoing LWRP or an LWRP application is part of that, please review the LWRP program requirements to get a better idea on whether those two processes would be aligned. And if you have any further questions, I encourage you to review the RFAs for both programs.
yeah, I think just to add on to that, I don't think we would suggest that you apply for comprehensive plan grant with the expectation of including an LWRP plan within it. I think you would apply for LWRP separately along with comp planning. Danny did say in his presentation that if you needed to do sort of smaller studies related to housing, transportation, those types of things, those could be funded in concert with a comprehensive plan. But if you're looking to do something like a full LWRP or a full BOA, those should be applied for separately. Hopefully that clarifies the question. We're just doing a final scan here. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions that have been submitted. If you have additional questions after the webinar is concluded, which will be shortly, they must be submitted by email. No responses will be provided to inquiries made by telephone, social media, or by contacting DOS staff directly via email or telephone. That's all part of our procurement process. When emailing, please use the subject format and the appropriate email address that you see on this slide. For example, to ask a question about the LWRP program, the subject line would read 24-LWRP-03 RFA questions, and similarly for the other programs as noted on this slide. That's just so we can keep track of them and make sure that the questions go to the appropriate folks and we get the right answers out to everyone. Responses to questions received by June 17th will be posted on the DOS website by July 9th. Please be as specific as possible in your questions. These instructions are also included in our funding and bid opportunities website as well as the RFAs. We are having in-person regional workshops. The first one is actually today in the North Country. You can register for them at the links provided. Well, the links here aren't going to help you at the website provided here. And those will be going on late May through the third week in June. So please attend those. There'll be brief presentations on each project and ample opportunity for people to ask specific questions to the various programs that are being offered in the CFA. So applications for these programs are due by 4 p.m. on July 31st this year and must be submitted through the web-based consolidated funding application. Please note that this is a hard deadline and applications will not be accepted after 4 p.m. on July 31st. If you're able, it's recommended to submit your application before this deadline, as the consolidated funding application portal can get very busy towards the end. So it's helpful if you can get started early and submit before that last day. So with that, we thank you for your participation. We thank you for your interest in our programs. Look forward to seeing applications and appreciate your participation. Have a good day, everyone.